Hello and welcome to the final instalment of Camogie Talk. On the 11th of September, the two top teams, Cork and Kilkenny, will battle it out in Croke Park right behind me to see who gets their hands on the coveted O'Duffy Cup. Hello and you're very welcome to the final instalment of Camogie Talk. I'm joined here today by Camogie player supreme Ursula Jacob and top class journalist Daragh. You're very welcome, guys.
Thanks, Anna.
It's the last time, but it's the biggest one that we've had so far. So I'm sure you've all been doing your research and everything. You've been thinking about what the prediction is going to be, who am I going to choose. It's probably not the easiest one to pick. So look, Cork Kilkenny All-Ireland final, it's probably going to be very much talked about given the fact that they've met in the last few years and, you know, games haven't necessarily gone Kilkenny's way. They met in 2014 All-Ireland final. Cork, as I can remember all too well, going the steps of the Hogan stand, won. They met in 2015 All-Ireland semi, and now they're back in 2016 All-Ireland. Let's just look back a little bit at the All-Ireland semi-finals. So let's take Cork. What do you think they're going to have learned from their All-Ireland semi-final that they will bring into this Kilkenny game?
Well, I think, you know, in the All-Ireland semi-final it was a very dogged game, you know, against Wexford. They're going to have learned a lot from that game. It really went down to the wire and it pushed them all the way. I suppose some areas of improvement and concerns for Cork, maybe, you know, they didn't score a goal in the normal time or extra time. So that's going to be a key area that they're going to be focusing on, and they're going to be hoping that in the final, you know, they'll at least try, you know, expose Kilkenny for at least one goal. Now in that game, you know, you have to say, you know, you had some players that maybe weren't, big name players going into that game, but the likes of Hannah Looney really stood up in that game. You know, she got 4 points from play and created havoc, you know, for the Wexford defence. I suppose at the back, you know, they kept it nice and tight and they're going to be happy with that, and they didn't concede a goal, which was excellent. You know, Aoife Murray was very, you know, strong on the ball, you know, when it was going in, and, you know, Wexford had been threatening a lot of goals in the championship, so they'll be very, very happy with that. And I suppose, you know, the midfield pairing of Orla and Aisling, you know, they really drove on in the last few minutes, and I think that's going to be key to Cork going into the final.
And we look at Kilkenny now. What will their learning points be from their match against Galway?
Well, look, it was a funny game. I think Kilkenny were the better team in that game and probably dominated for most of it. So you would be disappointed if you were management that you didn't put it away and that you were brought into extra time. I mean, obviously it was a 73rd minute goal that brought them into extra time, but they should have been further ahead. Went quite a period, 17 or 18 minutes or something like that, without scoring. But they would have been delighted with the start and would love that type of start out here in the final. A couple of goals in the first 10 minutes, and probably should have had another one or two. Their tactic, you know, of creating that space and using Anna Farrell's pace and getting her sister Shelley in free inside, that worked really well. Mm-hmm. And Dalton centre back, Denise in midfield, Denise Gall, and they just look to have a really good balance. So I think they'd be generally happy enough with where they are, just want to be that bit more clinical, because you're going to have to be, because as Cork showed, you know, it was nip and tuck the whole way and they scored the last 5 points suddenly to put the game to bed. You don't want to, as they say, don't give a sucker an even break. You don't want to keep them in it, and if you have a chance to put them away, put them away.
Okay, and let's just look now for a moment at the styles of both teams. Do you think that, I suppose, they're similar or that they're quite different? So, Daragh, if you just want to jump in.
Yeah, look, I mean, they are quite similar in terms of how they set up. Maybe, drawing the half forwards in particular back, and maybe creating. I mean, Cork like to, you know, Gemma somehow finds herself loose all the time, which I find strange. Why opposition don't tag someone to actually mark her just because she's 6 on her back. She hurls too much ball not to stop. But Kilkenny do the same. Now I think they possibly do it for different reasons. Cork initially were probably the first when Paddy came in, and they wanted to get tight defensively and did that really well. And they have the forwards, the pace up front to cause damage. Kilkenny definitely want that pace coming from deeper, you know, Anna soloing in behind rather than Cork maybe trying to hit Katrina or that, and that works really well. So in a way they're similar, but in a way they're different.
And I suppose, both sets of management are going to be looking at each other's styles of play. Tactically, can you see any of the managers maybe changing their style, you know, given the fact that their opposition?
Well, obviously they're going to have to look at, both Kilkenny and Cork's management are going to pinpoint areas that they can maybe expose, that maybe they can, threaten. So I suppose maybe from a Cork perspective, Davina Tobin, who's full back for Kilkenny, she's had a very solid year, but maybe, her aerial presence isn't that strong maybe in full back. So maybe they could see someone like Hannah Looney pushing into a full forward line position. From a Kilkenny perspective then, look at, as Daragh mentioned, Gemma being centre back left on her own. I've no doubt that the Kilkenny management team are going to be, honing in on this. They're going to see what way that they can, curb the influence of Gemma from centre back, and I think that's going to be two key areas for both teams.
I suppose, like for Cork and Kilkenny, the double is on. There's the two teams in the intermediate and in the senior. Kilkenny have different managements. Cork have the same manager in Paddy Murray. Ursula, do you think that's going to be a factor? He's going to be having to manage 2 All-Ireland finals.
Yeah, I definitely think it is going to be a factor from a Cork perspective. Paddy is going to be, have 2 All-Irelands, 2 teams, in one day, and it's a very difficult position to be in. He wants to do the best for both the intermediates and the seniors, and he has to give his focus for both. Now, I know in 2010 and 2011, JJ Doyle and the Wexford management team did it. It worked in 2011, it didn't in 2010, so, and Tony Ward did it similarly with Galway. He's going to be given all his focus for the intermediates. He's not going to be around with the senior girls right up until 10-15 minutes before the game. So I know that maybe a manager's presence in a dressing room can be very important. Yeah. And I know a lot of the Cork girls are leaders and that, but if Cork win or lose the intermediate final, it could have a bearing on some of the girls in the senior dressing room. So I think it is a factor, whereas Anne Downey and her management team can solely focus on the senior game.
And Daragh, some of the intermediate players are going to be subs on Cork's senior panel, and perhaps they might be introduced into the play depending if there's injuries or changes need. What about those players? Is that going to be difficult for them?
Well, I guess it isn't, because their full focus will be on the intermediate. But if you get called in 10 minutes into the senior game, will your focus have been on it? How tired will you be mentally? How tired will you be physically? And that may be a factor, because as well as different managements, of course, Kilkenny have 2 completely different panels. So that will not be an issue for the senior game. They will not have anyone that will be involved. Whereas Cork will certainly have some people that will be involved. And it is notable that they have only used, I think, 16 players throughout the whole championship, which is an amazing stat.
And Jennifer Hotspur was only a forward, so there's no back that's been tested in championship.
So that will be, and who's to say injuries, anything can happen on the big day. So it's been done here before, it's not impossible, but it is another little factor in the mix, that might be significant.
Okay, well, keeping with the idea of players, if we just look at some of the significant players that really impressed you in the semi-finals moving into the final, Ursula, who would be your picks for both teams?
I suppose for Kilkenny, Denise was the standout player from midfield. Look at, her free take in that day was incredible, and, her work rate and that from open play was exceptional. She hit in great delivery and ball into the forwards. Now, Shelley Farrell and Michelle Quilty were causing havoc in the full forward line. They both got 2 great goals in the first half, and I think that, their pace is going to trouble the Cork full back line, and they'll take confidence from their performance in that semi-final as well. I suppose from a Cork perspective, as I mentioned, Hannah Looney, was exceptional, 4 points from play, and she's really going to have to be minded, and she's so physically strong and well able to score from both sides. Rena Buckley, did a man marking job on Una Lacey and excelled, in the backs that day. And I suppose Laura Tracy as well. She was on Kate Kelly, and she really made it tough for Kate. So I think those players really stood out in the semi-final.
And Daragh, for you?
Well, look, a couple of players, obviously. Ursula got first round there. Mentioned most of them.
She stole a few.
But, we've mentioned Gemma, and she just makes Cork tick. I mean, it's not all about Gemma, but, Gemma picks up so much loose ball, and people think it's handy ball, but it's not. You got to be able to read, and she's a brilliant reader. And she just reminds me of Jim Cashman back in the day with the Cork senior hurlers. Before there was sweepers was an official term, but she just floats in around the 2 half lines, picks up ball, and the delivery, it's not just a mad drive. She's looking around at where it's going, so she's very important. And I think Anna Farrell has just gone on another level this year, and she's so strong carrying the ball, so quick, and with that space between the midfield and the full forward line, she caused havoc against Galway. As I say, Galway defensively had the best defence before that semi-final, and Kilkenny destroyed them in the first 15 minutes, and Anna was, even though she didn't get the score, she was central in that. So Dalton is similar to Jem on the other side. Look, we could name 30 players.
Yeah, exactly. We don't have that much time. I suppose one of the things as well that people are talking about, Cork are going for 3 in a row. You know, we haven't the best record in the last few decades with the 3 in a row. I was involved in plenty of times that we were going for 3 and we lost to the likes of Wexford or Galway in our quest. Cork 3 in a row, Kilkenny the fact that they haven't won since '94. A lot of people are going to be saying this to the players. Do you think that's going to have an impact on them?
I suppose, look, you can't control what other people are going to say. You know, media are going to be targeting and saying Cork going for the 3 in a row. It's been so long for Kilkenny. But you as a player, and you know yourself, Anna, when you're in a setup, you're only focusing on the next game. Yeah. Cork know they can only win 1 All-Ireland this year. You know, they can't win 3, even though they're going for the 3 in a row. Same with Kilkenny. Look, at this a new set of girls. You know, Anne Downey's going to be focusing on this year. You know, she's not going to be looking back in the history books back in 1994. You know, that's not going to have much relevance to the current crop of players, and they're going to have to just focus on the game. Now, coming to Croke Park, it's a whole new arena. You know, Cork have a pretty good record. You know, they've been in 7 finals in the last 10 years and, you know, won 5 of them. So, you know, whereas Kilkenny have been in 2 and they've lost 2 in the last 10 years. So, you know, Cork girls take confidence from, you know, when they get to Croke Park, they've come out with a win the majority of the time. Whereas a lot of the Kilkenny girls are seeking to, you know, walk up those steps, you know, and lift the cup. So it can be a factor.
And Daragh, from a media perspective, you know, when you be interviewing the players or the managements, is this something that you want to gauge a reaction for, you know, to see how they cope with that question? Well,
probably at this stage you expect the answer, which is the answer Ursula gave. and they gave us plenty of times there for a few years, you know, be it 2, 3, 4 in a row or whatever. But I think it's probably just another little extra motivating factor. I mean, from a media point of view, you're looking for a hook and you'll ask that question, and it is a factor, but they're never going to say it externally. But it's just another little motivating factor, be it we haven't won there, or be it we're going for 3 in a row, and they might say afterwards, yeah, it was a big thing for us, but they're never going to say it beforehand, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's true. They won't admit it to the likes of
No.
Okay. This is the crunch time now. For the final time, I'm going to ask both of you. It's a great part about being the presenter. I can abstain from this part. So, Daragh.
Thank you. Yeah.
Their prediction.
I'm so struggling with this one, and I'm very conscious of a 100% record on Camogie Talk, but I'm struggling here. This really, we had extra time in both semi-finals. It wouldn't surprise me if this goes to a replay, and that's not a cop-out. It's just, it's so tight. You have Cork who have been there, done that. Have so much strength right through the field. You have people like Hannah Looney. Can Hannah Looney repeat what she did in the semi-final? If she can, I mean, she's a young player. She might be just going to the next level now, you know. But out here is when she has to do it. Kilkenny are definitely much improved. In the past few years, when they have fallen, be it at the final or semi-final hurdle, they have had it too easy getting there. They weren't tested. This year they've had a lot of challenges, and I think the balance of the team is really right. I think they have a lot of pace up front.
Sounds to me like you're tipping Kilkenny
so,
a little bit.
Now that I feel like maybe I'm persuading myself that maybe this might be Kilkenny's time, but like there's no confidence in that at all.
Okay. Well, Ursula, now it's to you.
Look, I suppose like Cork are going to be going in strong enough favourites. You know, they have the backbone of, you know, the last year's team. They've consistently had a good, you know, campaign this year. On the other side, you know, Kilkenny, you know, league champions, had a good group stages, and, you know, and performed very well in the semi-final. For some reason, I'm kind of tipping and edging barely Kilkenny. I think if Kilkenny can get a good start, but and in the second half come out after the half time and get on top of Cork, I think they might do it. And if they can get on top of the midfield battle. But I'm barely tipping them.
So the 2 analysts say Kilkenny. I'm wearing the red for Cork, so maybe that balances things out. Thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you in Croke Park.